Okay, let's unpack this. What if everything we thought we knew about work was just, well, wrong? Imagine this. You work less, and somehow, impossibly, things get better.
Right.
Productivity soars, stress vanishes, and the economy doesn't just survive, it actually thrives. Sounds like fantasy, doesn't it?
It really does. A bit counterintuitive.
Well, get ready for a serious plot twist, because Iceland didn't just, dabble in a 4-day work week. They dove head first.
They really committed.
And the results. Prepare to have your jaw drop.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And what's fascinating here is that we're not just speculating, are we? Our listener has been digging into the hard data from Iceland's nationwide trials.
Exactly. The ones between 2015 and 2019.
Yeah, and this wasn't some tiny, obscure study. We're talking over 2,500 workers.
Which is about 1% of Iceland's entire workforce.
1%. That's a massive real-world experiment. It's not trivial.
It's like a whole town deciding to rewrite the rules of work.
Yeah.
And our mission today, really, is to dissect the truly astonishing outcomes. We want to understand how slashing those work hours actually impacted how much got done, how people felt,
And the money side, too, the financial health of the nation.
Definitely. Forget everything you think you know about the Monday to Friday grind. This is going to blow your mind.
Absolutely. So the core of this Icelandic shakeup was a pretty straightforward reduction in the standard working week.
Down from 40 hours.
Yeah, from 40 down to just 35 or maybe 36 hours per week.
Okay, 35, 36. But here's the bit that gets me, the really shocking detail.
Go on.
This came with absolutely no reduction in pay for the employees involved.
That's it. That's the crucial part. It flips the script immediately on all the usual worries about shorter weeks, doesn't it?
Exactly. Same pay, fewer hours. Just let that sink in for a second.
It wasn't about cramming more into less time, not really.
No. It was a genuine reduction in time spent working. And this wasn't some, fringe movement either.
No, far from it. You had the Icelandic government involved, Reykjavik City Council.
And the trade unions, right. They were a big part of this.
Huge part. The strong role of the trade unions is really key here. It underlines that this wasn't just top-down.
It was driven by the workers, too.
Exactly. Demands from the workers themselves. And the sheer scope of these trials was incredible.
Like what kind of workplaces?
Oh, everything. Offices, obviously, but also preschools, social service agencies, even hospitals.
Hospitals. Wow. So it touched pretty much every corner of the economy.
Virtually, yes. It wasn't just, cushy desk jobs.
Right. We're talking people on the front lines, nurses, teachers, social workers, the very jobs where you'd think, okay, cutting hours, that sounds like chaos.
Precisely. And what was so clever, I think, was the implementation. It wasn't a rigid one-size-fits-all mandate.
Ah, okay. So how did they do it?
Each workplace collaborated with its own staff. They figured out the best way to make the reduced hours work for their specific situation.
That makes so much sense. Much more practical, right? More likely to actually stick.
Definitely. That tailored approach was crucial. It recognized that, a hospital's needs are different from an office's.
And the people doing the work know best how to make it efficient.
Exactly. And to really get a handle on the impact, researchers gathered tons of data.
Quantitative stuff, like productivity numbers.
Yep, productivity, performance metrics, but also things like well-being, work-life balance scores, and qualitative too.
So interviews, talking to people.
Yeah, in-depth interviews to capture the lived experience. How did it actually feel?
Okay, so picture this. Fewer hours, same pay, entire country holding its breath. The knee-jerk reaction, my first thought anyway, is productivity must have tanked. Right?
That's the standard assumption, isn't it? More hours equals more output. It's ingrained.
Totally. But here's where the story takes that truly shocking turn, that assumption, completely shattered.
Utterly. Productivity didn't just limp along. In many, many of these workplaces, it actually spiked. It went up.
Increased with fewer hours.
Yeah.
That's the bit that's hard to wrap your head around.
This is the real head turner. The fear was a drop-off, maybe maintaining it at best, but the data overwhelmingly showed the opposite.
Okay. How did they pull off this seemingly impossible thing? It wasn't magic, surely.
No, not magic at all. The research highlights some surprisingly simple but incredibly effective strategies.
Like what?
People got laser-focused on priorities, ruthlessly cutting out time-wasting stuff.
Like pointless meetings? We all know those.
Exactly. Meetings were axed or dramatically shortened, more focused agendas, workflows got streamlined.
Better delegation, maybe?
Yep, more effective delegation and also leaning more on digital tools, automation where possible.
It's like the limited time forced everyone to just get incredibly resourceful, no time to waste.
Precisely. That scarcity of time, it acted as a powerful motivator for efficiency. Teams got much more intentional.
So was this just in pockets, or did it have a bigger effect?
Well, connecting this to the bigger picture, Iceland actually saw an estimated 1.5% increase in its overall national productivity rates during this period.
Whoa, hang on. A national productivity increase.
Yeah, and get this, they even outperformed some of their Nordic neighbors who are usually seen as productivity leaders.
That's astonishing. So these workplace efficiencies weren't just isolated wins. They added up.
It suggests a broader shift, perhaps. Maybe, the improved well-being fostered more focused, engaged workers overall, created a kind of positive cycle.
A nationwide productivity jump. So the economy didn't just shrug it off. It seemed to actually benefit. But what about the people? The human side?
Right, were they just frantically trying to squeeze 40 hours into 35, burning out faster?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually quite the opposite. The impact on employee well-being was remarkable, truly.
Okay, tell me more. Less stress.
Significantly less stress reported, big improvements in mental health, and a much stronger sense of job satisfaction.
Wow. There are numbers on that.
Oh, yes. The statistics are compelling. Around 0% of those involved preferred the new schedule.
80%. Okay, that's huge buy-in.
And about 60% reported a better work-life balance.
60% better work-life balance. That's a game changer, isn't it? We hear so much about burnout these days.
And these trials seem like a powerful antidote. People suddenly had more time.
Time for what? Like hobbies, family.
For health, for family, for friends, just for living. One stat that really jumped out at me was an incredible 97% felt it was easier to balance work and personal life.
97%.
Almost everyone. And 42% reported less stress specifically in their private lives outside of work.
That's not just a slight improvement. That's a fundamental shift in quality of life.
It really underscores that vital link, doesn't it, between working hours and just overall well-being, more time for rest, for connection.
And that feeds back into work performance, presumably.
But positive effects ripple through. Better engagement, better performance, it seems.
Okay, so happier, more productive workers. Sounds like a win-win for individuals.
Yeah.
But the big economic picture, surely slashing hours nationally must hit the economy somehow.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or perhaps the Krona question here. And Iceland's experience gives a fascinating answer.
Which is, don't keep us in suspense.
Despite the widespread reduction in hours, Iceland's economy stayed remarkably robust.
Robust how? Like, unemployment didn't shoot up?
No, unemployment stayed low, hovering around 3.4%. And in 2023, they recorded significant GDP growth.
That's significant.
5% GDP growth in 2023, which outperformed many other developed European nations.
5%. That definitely doesn't sound like an economy struggling because people are working less.
Not at all. And remember, GDP growth fluctuates, but 5% is generally seen as strong performance.
Okay, but what about the cost? The government, the public sector, they were heavily involved. Surely that cost a fortune.
Well, interestingly, the estimated financial hit to the public sector budget was minimal. Tiny, in fact.
How minimal?
Around just 0.11% of the total budget.
0.11%. That's barely a rounding error.
Pretty much. And looking ahead, the forecasts for Iceland's GDP growth in 2024 and 2025 remain positive.
So the evidence really suggests reducing the work week didn't hurt the economy. It didn't sacrifice stability or future growth.
That's what the data points towards, yes. No economic meltdown.
Potentially even the opposite. Okay,
Right.
But how did they make it work on the ground? In those diverse places like schools and police stations?
Right, the practicalities. This is where the ingenuity really comes in. They found creative solutions.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, so in schools, for instance, they brought in carefully planned rotating schedules. This made sure there was always coverage, but teachers got longer stretches off.
Smart. And the police station you mentioned?
They used staggered week schedules. So over a 2-week cycle, officers worked fewer overall hours, but the station maintained its operational capacity.
So the key was tailoring it. No single magic bullet.
Exactly, finding solutions for the specific needs of each place.
So it wasn't just everyone gets Friday off. Much more nuanced.
Much more. And it sounds like this really forced that focus on efficiency we talked about.
Yeah, the reports mentioned better task prioritization, more effective delegation, even shorter coffee breaks in some places.
Ah, yes. It's as if every minute of work suddenly became more valuable, more focused.
The reduction in hours was the catalyst then for innovation and efficiency.
It seems so. And importantly, these changes weren't just dictated from on high.
How so?
In many cases, you had committees of workers and managers working together to design the new patterns.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
Getting buy-in from everyone.
Which was likely a massive factor in why it actually worked, why it was sustainable.
Iceland really seems to have stumbled onto something potentially revolutionary here. Has this, caught on? Are other countries looking at this?
Oh, absolutely. Iceland's success story, especially the scale of it, sent ripples across the globe. People noticed.
So we're seeing similar trials popping up.
Definitely. Spain, for example, launched a government-funded pilot program looking at the 4-day week.
Okay. Anywhere else?
Well, the city of Valencia in Spain did an interesting experiment with extended holiday weekends. They reported positive impacts on public health and even environmental sustainability. Less commuting, maybe?
Interesting. Germany.
UK. Germany's conducted trials too, and a really high percentage of the companies involved said they plan to continue with the 4-day week afterwards.
They liked it that much.
Apparently so. And the UK's recent large-scale trial, you probably heard about that one, it had overwhelmingly positive results.
Yeah, I remember reading headlines. Most companies stuck with it.
The vast majority chose to maintain the new schedule. It was a huge success story there, too.
Wow. So it's not just an Icelandic fluke. There's a pattern emerging.
It seems that way. The common thread linking these international trials is pretty much the same story we saw in Iceland.
Which is, let me guess, maintained or increased productivity.
Check. And happier, healthier employees.
Check. It's consistent. But are they all doing it exactly the same way, like the 35, 36 hours?
Not necessarily. The approaches do vary. Some places focus more on compressing the standard 40 hours into 4 longer days.
The compressed workweek model.
Right. While others, like Iceland, aimed for that genuine reduction in total hours worked.
So it depends on the context.
Yeah, the crucial thing seems to be finding the model that fits the specific cultural context, the economic realities of that region or industry.
Okay. So we've talked about the huge benefits for employees, more time, less stress, better balance. But what about the companies? Why would an employer actually want to do this?
That's a fair question. The advantages for employers go beyond just maintaining productivity levels, though that's obviously important.
Like what? What's in it for them?
Well, think about attracting talent. In a competitive job market, offering a 4-day week, that's a powerful magnet.
Yeah, I see that being a huge draw. Better retention too, maybe.
Exactly. Improved employee retention, reduced turnover that saves companies a lot of money in recruitment and training costs.
Makes sense. Any other cost savings?
Studies also suggest potential drops in absenteeism and sick leave. Healthier, happier, more engaged employees just don't need to take as much time off, it seems.
Right. Less burnout, fewer sick days.
And ultimately, it can just cultivate a much more positive, more productive work environment overall. Better morale, maybe even more innovation.
It almost sounds too good to be true. Like utopian. Surely there have to be downsides, challenges.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to keep a balanced perspective. There are definitely challenges and, valid concerns.
Like what are the sticking points?
Well, worries about workload compression are legitimate. If you're just cramming the same work into less time, that could actually increase pressure, right?
Yeah, leading to burnout of a different kind.
Potentially. And it might just be harder logistically in industries that need continuous 24/7 operation or have super demanding schedules.
Like the hospitals we mentioned.
Yeah.
You can't just shut down a ward on Friday.
Exactly. Significant organizational change is often needed, and that can run into resistance, inertia.
And scheduling. Coordinating shifts and coverage must get way more complex in some sectors.
It definitely can. And some critics point out that the reduction in Iceland from 40 to 35, 36 hours, while significant, is maybe more modest than a full day off.
So maybe that relative modesty helped make it work. Less disruptive.
That's an argument some people make, yeah.
Yeah.
The point is, the 4-day workweek model probably isn't a perfect universal fit for every single industry or every single worker.
Okay, so not a magic wand for every workplace. Got it. But still, the overwhelming evidence from Iceland is incredibly compelling and frankly, pretty shocking.
It really is.
So wrapping this up, what's the absolute key takeaway for you, the listener, hearing all this?
I think the core message, the really powerful finding, is that Iceland's huge real-world experiment provides strong evidence that working less can lead to achieving more.
More productivity.
Significantly better well-being for people.
And a stable, maybe even thriving economy.
Right. It fundamentally challenges that old, ingrained belief. More hours automatically means more output, more prosperity.
It really makes you question that whole always be hustling 24/7 work culture, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
So, for you listening right now, what parts of Iceland's experiment really struck a chord? Does this make you rethink your own relationship with work or how your workplace runs?
Could a model like this even be possible in your field, It's worth considering.
And that leaves us with a final sort of provocative thought to chew on.
Okay.
If this big shift, reducing work hours, can have such positive results on a national scale, what other deeply ingrained rules or norms about work might be totally wrong?
Yeah.
What else could we reevaluate?
That's a big question.
And on a personal level, what could you actually do with an extra day each week? And what wider impact could that have on your own well-being, your community, the world around you?
It's a truly mind-bending prospect, isn't it? What that shift could unlock.